All right, good. Yep, 12:07. Good afternoon, everybody, from downtown Newport here on the 15th of December. We're inching closer to the end. It's all happened here. America's Cup is about to get rolling here. Taylor, maybe you can fill us in on what your thoughts are as this World Series racing starts in 2 days, 1 day's time. I don't know. They're 18 hours ahead of us, so I guess it starts Friday night for us here, right? Prime time, 9 o'clock viewing.
Yeah, 9 p.m. Eastern, I think is right on. So 9 to, I believe, around midnight. So yeah, really excited about it. And yeah, it sounds like all the thing has been pretty much, and have some good buddies down there who've been filling me in on what's happening, who's looking good, who's looking so good. And from everything I hear, Team New Zealand's going quite well, and American Magic and Luna Rossa are hanging in there, and then everything I've heard is that Ineos is struggling a little bit, but I think there's so much development happening with these boats that things can change really quickly. So I think we got to just let it play out a little bit, and this regatta is going to be awesome to watch and see the teams progress.
What are you hearing down there, Gary? Well, we'll go around the table hear what you're hearing, because everybody's hearing different things.
Well, I've talked to some people in New Zealand, and I think Taylor's assessment is accurate that Ineos seems to be slightly off the pace, and American Magic's going reasonably well. But I think everybody's got wide eyes that the New Zealanders, the New Zealanders are pretty fast. Plus, they're sailing well. So the key here is to get a baseline in December, and then watch how people improve from December to January and on to March. And those that can figure out how to keep making progress are going to win. And does anybody go backwards? I always look for crew changes too. That's always telling. When you start changing a crew, it means your boat has trouble. So blame the crew.
Backwards is no bueno. What, Ed, you did a great piece for us, which we just finished up the America's Cup issue, which would be in people's hands pretty soon, I suppose, on the tactics and the rules part of this thing. And to be fair to Ineos, one thing I heard was that they copped a penalty, and this sort of part of the slowdown thing, getting very hard to kind of get going again. And so it was a little bit unfair, I guess, as far as that goes. But what are your thoughts on the penalties and what you've seen or heard of on this practice races?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's going to be part of the game, and the question is, when you get penalized, how quickly do you have to drop back behind the other boat by 50 meters? Then that's the question mark. And I guess it sounded like Ineos was OCS in one of the starts and needed to get behind the other boat. As they slowed down to do that, they dropped off their foils, and it was just light enough that they couldn't really get going again. And that is that's a problem. I mean, that's like the supercharger not working on your drag racer off the line. You got to slow down for a second and then reignite. These boats are a little unique that way, and the races are going to be very short from what we're all used to. And you got to get it done right now, and you got to be ready for every situation. So. I think what Taylor said is right, that we got to let this play out a little bit, because who knows what mix and match tools they had on the boats. You get these reports about, oh, this boat was going really slow, and then you find out the next day that, well, they had quite a different amount of sail power on, or they had wings that or foils that were a different size, and they're not ready for that wind speed, but the rest of the week is a different wind speed, and that's what they had to set up for. So, these boats are not quite as quick to switch things around on as some of the boats in the past, and they're not allowed to switch around real quickly. So it's going to be interesting to see how they do set up. Pete Eisler and Gary, you guys remember so well back in '87 in Fremantle, when Dennis he had the boat that was ready for the big breeze, right? But the big breeze wasn't coming, and they were just hanging on. And then finally the breeze came in, and they started to do well and win all the races after that. But we don't know what the setups are right now, and that's going to be the interesting thing about this next weekend to see what we get. It's supposed to be pretty light, and we'll see if they can keep the boats going.
The action is not there when the boats are in the water, is it?
Yeah, it's you don't want to be down off the foil. You gotta keep it ripping.
Taylor, you had a good early look at the design package when you guys started building with yours. Is there anything of the boats that kind of stuck out to you that you think are pretty interesting? You've seen the rule the closest of us here.
Yeah, just probably the different, the foils are going to be a huge part of it, and the different shapes and sizes of the foils, and it always looks like Team New Zealand is on a slightly smaller area main foil. So I don't know if they've done something aerodynamically, or the way that they can the way that they break their main foil arm, that they're able to sail with a slightly smaller area foil, but that seems to be the trick for them. And that obviously there's risk and reward at that. One is like Ed said, if you're not up in the air, you don't have a chance. But once you're up in the air, you're reducing a lot of wetted surface and a lot of drag. So I think they're all going to try to minimize that drag. The aero game is a huge part of it, and I think all the teams are focusing on that as well. End plating to the sails not only onto the boat, but then also trying to end plate the hulls of the boat to the water has been a pretty big focus, as we see the bottoms of the boat start to project downward towards the water. I think their goal is to fly the boat as close to the water as they can to try to end plate the boat on the water.
Full effect. All right, Axel, what's your take on what's been happening so far?
Oh, I'm so stoked. I'm on the outside looking in, but I'm really excited. I'm engaged again in the America's Cup, and that's good news. And I'm going to be watching. One cool thing when the races take place, and as we know, as we talked about, wind speed is going to be an important thing. Is the guys that predictwind.com are basically responsible for putting in the array of extra weather buoys that are all around the racing area, all around Rangitoto and the harbor, et cetera. So, I'm going to be watching that while I'm watching the racing too, because it'll just give you, depending on how the announcers are doing, you're going to have a better idea of what's going on with the wind, and if that southwest sea breeze is coming in. But, it's fascinating with these high speed boats that, the Cup has changed. Sure, 87 with Stars and Stripes, we came into our own, but it wasn't night and day like 2013 when the Kiwis had the technique and the technology of foiling better than the other teams, were just miles ahead. And then, Oracle figured it out and came from behind. And that's, I think, the nature of these beasts a little bit more than the good old monohulls back in the olden days. And so it's dangerous to write anybody off at any point. And so much of it is, as Taylor points out, little, finesse things with the setup and also the technique. And the problem is most of the technique stuff. I mean, you think back to Bermuda, the Kiwis were way faster, but if you were just watching the TV, you really didn't, you could see that they were faster and they were foiling better and more stable, but all the technique and the technology that went behind that finesse was hidden. And that'll be an interesting part, and hopefully we can glean some info from behind the scenes and learn a little bit about the tech of this thing, which is so fascinating.
Yeah, the technique is we had an interesting phone call with Jimmy Spithill last week to talk about the Sail GP show, and he's joining you. Maybe you'll be involved with that, Taylor, who knows. But about his sort of dual role with Bruni on the other side, and saying it could be good, could be bad, but life being asymmetric, just sailing the boat from one side only, and never having, basically he's getting less time driving if you're only sailing half the race, which was kind of interesting, given that how short the races are. But he seemed to be pretty happy holding on to the starboard wheel. So see how that works out. But don't look like they'd be crossing the boat anytime soon. It's all technique. So real quick on the Sail GP, what do you know, Taylor? Speaking of.
Yeah, not too much. We got the email from Russell saying there's going to be a change for next year, and I had the pleasure of sailing with Rome and Team USA for I guess 1 and maybe a fifth of a season. So it was an incredible experience, and I'd love to do more of it. Whether that happens or not is yet to be determined, I think. So just standing by and prepping as much as I can, sailing my moth, and making sure I'm physically fit for the season, and let's see if I get the call up.
So April, Bermuda, there's is the restart of the whole series. Having been in one of these teams, how easy is it to just plug in in April and start sailing against the likes of Burling and Jimmy, and they got a pretty good lineup for this season.
Yeah, absolutely. Adding another boat on the small racetracks that they race is going to be that much more hectic. But on top of that, they're gaining a lot of great sailors. So the competition's going up. The boats are changing. We're going to see all the boats with the new wing sails, I believe, for that first Bermuda event, which will be pretty cool. So they're going to have a lot more control of the wings and able to twist them a lot more. And then also not sure, but 2 to 3 different size options for the wings. So I think it's going to increase the breeze range that they're going to be able to sail in, which is really cool as well. And hopefully increase the speed of the boat. So I think there's a lot of benefit to, the improvements they've done. And I'm really looking forward to either being a part of it or watching it. I think it's great for the sport and the development of the sport. And it's going to be a lot of fun.
Do the boats really need to go any faster?
Not sure. I think everyone's always trying to push the limits, but 50 knots is pretty quick when you're on board. That's for sure. Or trying to cross the boat, in 20 knots of breeze, doing 33 knots upwind. It's a lot of apparent wind. So we'll see. I think that they will eventually start to be limited by the foils and how fast they can go and when they start to ventilate. We've seen them starting to ventilate kind of around that 50 plus knot number anyways. So I think that's going to end up being the determining factor. And to be honest, don't know if they've made any foil changes. So I think that we're going to see similar foils to what we were using. And that'll probably end up determining how fast the boats are, that top speed that they'll end up getting to.
Yeah, it seems like 2021 is right around the corner. It's like, I know we're hoping the vaccine changes the world, but you've got that series kicking off. We know there's a new U.S. sailing series that's being started. I think calling it a U.S. Open or something like that. Kind of a replacement of the One Design Olympic class regattas down your neck of the woods. And are you helping Stephanie prep for some of these winter events in Gen Feb?
Yeah, I mean, I was actually just down in Miami. I'm back up in Newport for a little bit, and there's plenty going on. And I think they're doing a great job down there. Just kind of seeing it from all angles. The Olympic classes, and Bacardi just hosted an event out of Shake a Leg and was done very successfully and very safely. Staggering the fleets out so that certain fleets are leaving the dock at certain times, and there's not this big cluster of people just hanging out on the docks. Giving the Bacardi care packages at the end of the day so people can go home and drink their rum with their teammates. And so I think it's obviously very hard times right now, but they're doing a great job in Miami, just minimizing the interaction between the sailors and but at the same time getting everyone out on the water, which I think is what everyone is kind of looking for right now. I think it's getting old for a lot of people being indoors, and it's great to see people back out sailing.
Yeah, it's amazing the amount of sailing happened in Miami. How about Jonathan? Were you on the East Coast as well recently?
Yeah, I was last weekend in Davis Island, Tampa, Florida, for what was supposed to be a J70 regatta. It turned out to not be an official regatta, but there was still 25 boats doing unofficial training and racing. And we ended up having 7 races. So it was in fact a regatta. But the club is being hesitant about, I suppose, taking on the liability of running a real regatta. And so much of the work fell to the coaches and to Ed Furry with Sail 22, who in partnership with the Markbots was able to run really successful training and racing with really only 2 people on his boat and a couple of coach boats. So that part was pretty impressive.
Nice.
Yeah, on that note, we just got word that the January Davis Island event will be canceled, but again, like Jonathan said, Ed Furry is doing an amazing job. And you know, they are taking all the precautions, which I think is great. And
Yeah.
it sounds like they're going to try to put something on like they did in December that Jonathan was just at. They're going to try to do another one of those events run by coaches and of course, Sail 22.
In January, and they're being pretty careful about trying to not have too many people on the dock at the same time. For example, there's staged times when you can leave the dock, and also pulling the boats out of the water. They're keeping people spaced out. So there's some steps that they're taking to keep it safer, I think, which everybody appreciates. You know, there still is some risk, though. You can't kid yourself that, you know, you're flying across the country and you are with people, and, you know, Florida's not exactly the safest place in the world. But having said that, I've done this a few times, come back, gotten tested, and I've always been okay. So crossing my fingers.
All right, outstanding. How about you, Isler? What's happening in San Diego? Hot Rome is done. What can you do next?
Yeah, the hot rum is done. We got the Piwak at Roy Disney's Turbo Volvo 70 is getting queued up for hopefully a Transpac year. And so I've got a bit of pre-work going on that. We're going to start sailing it right after Christmas. So that's a little fun thing to look forward to. And I got a call from my buddy Chris Bedford, who's down there with the American Magic folk doing the weather, and he wanted to do a little Marine Weather University free class to take a look at the Hobart race, which is one of my favorite things to do at Christmas time, because they normally have that great Channel 7 live feed, so you can watch about the first hour and a half, this incredible start in the harbor, and then as the Super Maxis start ripping out the bay, they have helicopter coverage and stuff. So we're going to do a pre-race weather outlook on that, so that'll be a fun thing to look forward to. But otherwise, riding the horses and playing in the band.
Outstanding. All right, so we'll keep this short here. Let's go back to the pairings here. We're gonna do this. This would be like, I guess, a speed pairing. So it looks like we're starting December 17th, right? Race 1. Quick poll: who's got this one? Kiwis and the Italians.
New Zealand.
Any takers?
Yeah, gonna go New Zealand as well.
All right, Isler.
How can you bet against them?
All right, Jonathan, what do you got?
Gonna have to go with the crowd on this one.
All right, so that list leaning hard, that one. So it's a good opener, but
Jonathan, going against your old team.
No, I think Luna Rossa does look pretty smooth. You know, are they quite at the level of Team New Zealand? I guess we'll find out.
all right, in the home team, some people may say this is an easy one to start with, but yeah, you never know, and maybe not. What do you guys think?
I think American Magic wins this one easily.
I'll
Agreed.
second that.
All right, Ed, what's your take?
Yeah, well, I mean, from what we know, that's what makes sense. And, you know, of course, being from the US, we'd love to see them do well. But geez, I mean, you just don't know when it's going to be light. And we just don't know what have they got that, you know, both from a horsepower standpoint and from a foiling standpoint to get them up on the foils and get going in that light stuff. Who's got that better? This isn't going to be the blasting around in 25 knots of wind and just hanging on and who's figured out their equipment and what's not going to break sort of a race. This is going to be a light air, ooh boy, we're just getting this off sort of a race. So you never know. One puff.
So the interesting thing I saw this first day was that Ineos actually was the only team I think to go back-to-back races. And, you know, given the demand on the grinders? Is this, does anybody know, do you swap out grinders between races?
Well, from what I know, it sounds like that would be the perfect scenario, but most of the teams don't have that set up. So they don't have 5 extra guys just standing in the chase boat ready to jump in like they did in the Cats. So they're going to need to refuel and recharge real quick and go after it. The other side of it is that it's a 25-minute race course, and with these boats, the grinding, while it's always strenuous, they're not pushing right to the edge like they were in the Cats, where they were just always struggling to have enough oil. These boats, there's a bit more oil supply, and they can do a few more maneuvers without, quite the same amount of pressure on the guys. So I think they'll be all right.
All right.
Well, I don't know if anyone has any more information on it, but I saw one photo of Ineos team UK from above, and it looked like their pedestals are facing inboard, outboard rather than fore and aft. And I know that, just from hearing some of the studies about the 2-man on the grinder, I think they're only gaining an extra 30% power by having 2 guys on the grinder. So I don't know if they're able to, create more power and if that's helping them or what, but does anyone have any more info on that?
Yeah, they definitely have athwart ships pedestals, and I don't know much about grinding. I haven't really done any in my life.
Thank goodness.
There's your afterguard. I was thinking of that one on a bike.
Except for the 4 MRIs and the 5 shots of cortisone I've had put in my shoulder over the years. I think this series, it's not about who we think it's going to win. It's about what everybody's going to learn about how to start these boats, the tactics in the racing game. I mean, everybody's in the same boat. We're in the same boat as everybody else. Maybe a couple teams have done a couple of starts, but like starts in different wind speeds and that constrained box and stuff, that's going to be potentially a big part of the game, and how aggressive they want to try to be in learning about that and doing the extra maneuvers and potentially falling off the foil and not getting back up again or something. That to me is going to be one of the real cool things about this series, is what the teams learn about how to race these boats.
Yeah. I think, as we said with the Ineos problem on the penalty, like, man, just getting off the start without getting off the start clean. That's, wow, more important than ever. So
That looked to me like an ongoing issue with Ineos, and not to read too much into it, though. They, of all the boats, seem to struggle on takeoff. So in the lighter wind that we expect this week, they're going to have some challenges if that is in fact the case.
all right, sweet. All right, last race of the first day, American Magic and Emirates. What do we got? What do you think?
Now, that'll be exciting. I think Emirates wins this one.
Go with Emirates as well, but as we saw I think just yesterday for them now, American Magic did take one of the practice races from Team New Zealand, so could be a good match.
All right, cool. Who's downloaded the NBC Sports Gold Pack?
I have. Dave, I was going to say, it's going to be very interesting to see how big the viewing audience is for the America's Cup versus the Sail GP. We got the Vendée Globe coming up, and then going on, and then the Olympic Games after that. I mean, a lot of very different television opportunities in 2021. And a year from now, when we're sitting here, it'll be interesting to look back to see what gained the biggest viewing audience and what people gravitated to. $175 to get the America's Cup is a little bit out there, but we'll see how it goes. I did it. I'm on. Who else said they had done it? Dave, you did it?
I definitely, yeah.
Pedro?
I'm holding on to my money until I pay my taxes.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's the only reliable way to be able to sit with the beer and the popcorn at 9 o'clock at night on the East Coast and watch the racing. So I don't know if the Facebook feed and everything's going to be all that reliable enough to watch it consistently. So yeah, I'm voting up. And Ed, maybe we can do a watch party. We're gonna figure out, maybe I can share my password,
There we go. The other thing is that apparently you can slightly get around the system a little bit if you get a VPN and go and get it for free in another country on YouTube or, but it gets a little complicated.
There's always a workaround.
But we get the NBC Sports Network down here. We watch a lot of their content, and it seemed like there was some way to use that, since we already have it with our cable package, that I'm still exploring what we have to do to see the race, but
There you go.
definitely want to watch.
$174.
All right, everybody. Thanks for joining. Taylor, it's good to know you're a Newport here, freezing off with the rest of us. So yeah, welcome to town. We'll have to catch up for a beer later.
Are we gonna reconvene next Monday, Dave?
I think so. You guys ready to do a little post race?
Sure. That'll be interesting. We'll all be a little smarter a week from today.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe. A good point.
Well,
All right, yeah, well,
Talk about.
hopefully we'll reconvene and we'll get one of the guys straight from the ground. I'm working on getting one of the guys on board to be available at 6 o'clock their morning time, just after their gym session.
All right.
Let's even get Terry. We're going to come clean. It's been a while. All right, gents, have a great day, and we'll see you next week then.
Thank you.
Thanks. See you guys.
You guys, see everyone. Bye-bye.
See you.